Today, our market for real estate in Victoria sits at a crossroads, and the next 2 months will likely determine which direction it takes for the remainder of the year. In today's video, I'm going to explain what those two paths look like and how you can know which one is coming before it gets here. I'm Sean. I'm a real estate agent who lives in Victoria, and I make YouTube videos to help people understand how to better navigate our market. As always, if you're new to the channel and you haven't already, please like and subscribe so you don't miss anything else that we have coming up. And if you have plans involving real estate, you can get in touch with me by using the link at the bottom of this video. Okay, so the first thing is, if you're going to understand where our market is going, the first thing that you need to understand is where we are right now. And I think the main reason that most people aren't talking about the concerns I'm going to share with you in this video is because June looked really good. In June, we had 761 transactions reported on our MLS board. Now, that's good for any year, and it's a boost of about 15% from the same month last year. And we saw sales increase through just about every market segment. So detached homes did really well. Condos did especially well, which hasn't been a trend for the past couple of years since there's been a lot of regulatory changes that have affected investors. I will put an asterisk that townhomes took a bit of a dip, but remember, our market doesn't have a huge inventory of townhomes trading hands every month, and so we tend to see them swing around more than they really should, just because it's a smaller sample size, and that adds a lot of variability. Now, the thing with all of this is you'd expect with healthy sales that prices might start to edge up, but they've been relatively flat. And the reason is our inventory. Markets are driven by a number of factors. Political influences have been a big one this year, economic changes. We also see things like interest rates obviously bearing a lot of weight on any market, and real estate's no different. The thing though is that all markets are overridden by this balance between supply and demand. And throughout the course of this year, we have steadily been growing inventory. Last month, we finished the month with 3,778 homes on the market, almost 3,800 homes for sale. That is a huge amount of inventory, and it represents a growth of about 10% from last year. So we're sitting on a lot of homes on the market, and this is where my concern lies. So let's talk about supply and demand. In real estate, the way that we measure this is the absorption rate. And the way I like to look at it is months of inventory. So basically what we're doing is we're showing a contrast between the number of homes that are on the market and the number of homes that sold in a monthly period. So a balanced market would be one where if we stopped listing homes on the MLS, it would take between 4 and 6 months for us to sell all the ones that were currently on the market. And that's the kind of market that we're in right now. Last month, if you math it out, it lands right at 5 months, which is a great market for both buyers and sellers. It's predictable, it's stable, and buyers have the comfort of choice and the freedom to negotiate things like home inspections, which aren't always available in some of the markets that we've endured over the past decade or so. My concern lies with the fact that we've built up a huge amount of inventory this spring, and seasonality typically would dictate that our market cools off just a little bit during the summer. With 761 sales last month, we can hold this much inventory without it tipping favor between buyers or sellers. But it's also not uncommon to see sales slow down to somewhere between 500 and 600 in a given month in August or July. And if we see that this year and we're still carrying the same amount of inventory, that'll put us up to 7 months of inventory overnight. So my concern is we need to continue this momentum that we're seeing, or we might end up in a buyer's market really quickly. So the big question is, what's going to happen? Now, I started out the video today by saying that we stood at a crossroads, and the market over the next 2 months was going to likely define what's going to happen over the rest of the year. Now, one of those potential paths is that we slip into a buyer's market. We see a slowing in sales. Buyers would take the favor in negotiations. We could even see prices drop a little bit. The other path is that, well, maybe nothing happens. And here's what that would look like. Remember, when we came into this year, we were expecting a really healthy spring. It's been turbulent for several years, coming out of COVID and then experiencing interest rate hikes. So a lot of people were expecting that this year we would kind of finalize our stabilization and get back to some modest price growth. At the very least, we were expecting to see really healthy sales figures starting in February, March, April, and May. And we didn't really experience that. There was so much political uncertainty this year that a lot of buyers kind of just sat to the sidelines. When we look at that and we see the last few months having such high sales figures, a lot of my colleagues and I are kind of thinking that this might just be a late spring market. There's a lot of people who put their plans to the sidelines that might be looking at things now and saying, well, I'm still not sure what's going to happen politically, but I might as well live in a nice house while I ride that through. Now, if we continue to see people catching up with their spring plans, that could carry us through the summer with healthy sales figures. And if that happens, we could remain in a balanced market, chew through a little bit of the inventory, hopefully drop it a little bit lower, and come through the fall again, remaining in a balanced market. Now, the other path I've already alluded to a little bit in this video, but I want to go a little bit deeper on it. Remember that we finished last month with almost 3,800 homes for sale on our market, and that's a high number for any year. Now, that was offset by the number of transactions, keeping us still in a really healthy 5 months of inventory range. That's a comfortable market for everyone involved. The concern is that it's very common for our market to drop to between 500 and 600 transactions during the summer months. People tend to pull back a little bit from working on things in general, and moving is no different. So if we see that relaxed transactional count, what would happen is it would imbalance us instantly just based on the amount of supply that we have. That would put us to 7 months of inventory, but don't forget that people will continue to put their homes on the market. And so we could also see inventory continue to climb. Now, what that does is it really loosens the buyer's psyche. They look on the market and they see all kinds of great homes available, and that gives them a strong stance in negotiations, and it also takes the urgency off them to rush forward with a purchase. So not only are they going to take their time before deciding to move forward, which further softens sales, but they'll also negotiate a little bit harder because when there's lots of options out there, well, they might want to feel like they got a good deal. At the beginning of this video, I promised that I would share with you what you need to watch if you want to know where our market's going before it gets there. And there's really 3 main things I believe you should keep your eyes on if you want to know where our market's going. Now, the first one is supply and demand. You can download the Victoria Real Estate Board market reports that come out usually within the first few days of every month, or you can just subscribe to my channel and I'll break it down for you next month. That one's easy. You've got it taken care of. The next one is buyer psychology, and this is a little bit more complicated. We've had a tremendous amount of political uncertainty this year, and that hasn't really changed. What's changed is that people have just kind of gotten used to it. So if things remain bubbling like they are right now, I don't think it's going to be a major influence on our market, but if anything major happens, it likely will trickle down and affect the decisions that people make, especially if it's something that affects us locally on an economic scale. The last thing that I think you should watch, which is actually going to be one of the most impactful, is the Bank of Canada's interest rate announcement on July 30th. Now, they've been holding for a little while and we haven't seen any rate changes. We don't believe that rates are going to go down again, and if they signal that rates have hit the bottom and they will either remain here moving forward or go up, there's a likelihood that a lot of people will jump to the market in the interest of locking in the best deal on long-term interest rates. Canadians have a tendency to be conservative financially, and so when we see that we can lock in a good 5-year rate for our mortgage, we're really attracted to that, and that could spur a number of people coming to the market, which in turn would keep us moving forward with momentum, maybe even tip us closer to a seller's market. Absolutely possible that we could chew through a few months of inventory and be right back to the place where we were a few years ago. So there you have it. Our market really has 2 paths ahead that will most likely determine where we finish our year. The first one is that we remain balanced. We have pent-up buyer activity that delayed from the spring into the summer, and we chew through this inventory and we come into the fall in a balanced market just like we are right now. This is a great option, and frankly, it's the one I'm kind of hoping for. This is a beautiful market to navigate regardless whether you're buying or selling, and we're seeing healthy activity in every asset class. So no matter where you are and where you're going, we should be able to get you into something great and get you a good price for your home. The other potential path is that we build up inventory as buyer interest fades a little bit over the summer, which is totally normal. But that tips us into an imbalance where there's just so many homes for sale that buyers take their time and enjoy the freedom of choice and maybe stick it to the sellers a little bit. And for that reason, I think it's a good time to start planning regardless what your plans are. Every house is different. So looking at your specific neighborhood, your plans, and strategically putting something together that will take advantage of the market regardless of where it goes is something that you should start doing right now if you have any plans involving a move this year. As always, if you do have plans to move this year, reach out. You can use the link in my description to get in touch with me. And if you haven't already, subscribe and like this video. It's a huge solid to me. I really appreciate it. And it'll mean that you keep in tune with all the stuff that we're going to cover over the next few months as this all unfolds. As always, thank you for taking the time to watch, and I'll catch you on the next one.